Welcome to the board meeting of the Teachers Retirement Board for January 19th, 2023. I'll start by calling the roll. Brian Berge,
Brian Berge, representing Mayor Eric Adams, present.
Thomas Brown,
Present, good afternoon.
Russell Buckley,
Here for Panel for Education Policy Chair, Dr. Angela Green, and DOE Chief Financial Officer, Sarita Scott.
Allison Hirsch,
Here representing Comptroller Brad Lander.
David Kazansky,
Present.
Deborah Penny.
Present.
We have a quorum. So we're going to start with an update on TRS operations, and Kavita Kenmore is going to give us that update.
Thank you, Patricia. Good afternoon, everyone. The 1099 forms for tax year 2022 are being mailed in January. As part of this effort, TRS is also sending an informational brochure to approximately 4,200 new retirees who are receiving a 1099 form for the first time. By early February, all 1099 forms will also be available for members to view and download on the TRS website. On December 27th, TRS filed its 2022 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report with the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. The report is also available for viewing on the TRS website. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavita. Next is the Executive Director's Report. And the first item on that is the matter of the next meeting. And it has been suggested that the next regular meeting of the Teachers Retirement Board be held on the second Thursday of the month, February 9th, 2023. Next on the executive report is the board chair nomination. So the position of chairperson will be vacant beginning February 1st, 2023, due to the chairperson's retirement. In accordance with section 13-509 of the Administrative Code of the City of New York and Article 3 of the bylaws, in the event of a vacancy, the Teachers Retirement Board shall elect a chairperson to serve the remainder of the annual term ending in May. We therefore open the floor for nominations.
I'd like to nominate Tom Brown, most senior trustee and an amazing person.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Okay. In accordance with Article 6 of the TRS bylaws, I make a motion to suspend the requirement in Article 3 of the bylaws to wait until the next regular board meeting to vote on Mr. Brown's nomination, and that we instead vote today. I made the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hirsch. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that motion carries. We have unanimous consent to suspend the bylaws to allow a vote today on Mr. Brown's nomination to fill the board chair vacancy. All in favor of Mr. Brown to serve as board chair as of February and for the remainder of the annual term ending in May, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, point of personal privilege, if you may. I have been a member of TRS since 1982. I had a wonderful career as an educator, a wonderful second career on the board. I thank all of you. I think the members should know how hard TRS works for their members. Everything they do is for the members to try to help them navigate the system and take care of their money. And for most of our members, all of the money they have is with TRS, and they couldn't be in a better place. And I thank all of you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Next on the agenda is on the EDR is the attendance at a conference. The following resolution is presented for consideration of possible adoption. Resolved that the trustees of the Teachers Retirement Board hereby approve the attendance and participation of the executive director and/or her designees and any interested trustee at the National Institute of Retirement Securities 14th Annual Retirement Policy Conference from February 27th to February 28th, 2020.
Did I hear a motion to approve attendance at that conference?
So moved.
Mansky, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hirsch. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Well, good.
Next on the agenda for the EDR, we're adding a resolution that's gonna pass that out.
Sir.
Okay.
This is one resolution where I will make you read the whole thing.
Okay, so we have a resolution for Deborah Penny. Whereas Deborah Penny, trustee of the Teachers Retirement Board since 2016 and the chair of the board since 2019, is retiring from city service after 40 years of distinguished service to the people of the city of New York and the members of the Teachers Retirement System. And whereas Deborah Penny taught for decades at PS 32 in Staten Island, becoming chapter leader at the school and then taking on a greater role with the United Federation of Teachers, including Staten Island Borough Representative and her current role of UFT trustee. And whereas Deborah Penny distinguished herself through advocacy and leadership in several national organizations that promote and protect public pensions, including the American Federation of Teachers Trustee Council, the New York State United Teachers Board, the National Council of Teachers Retirement, and the National Conference on Public Employees Retirement Systems. And whereas Deborah Penny, while consistently upholding her high fiduciary standards, has tirelessly advocated for members of the Teachers Retirement System, most recently helping to establish automatic enrollment in TRS for paraprofessionals and an accidental death benefit provision for members lost to COVID-19. And whereas Deborah Penny, in her role as chair of the Teachers Retirement Board, has provided valuable guidance, effective partnership, and principal leadership to TRS executives and staff. And whereas Deborah Penny has always coupled her tremendous professional skills with kindness, compassion, and good nature that she showed everyone she encountered. And whereas Deborah Penny has been blessed to draw on the love and support of her family, including her husband, John, her sons, Justin, Christian, and Brandon, her daughter-in-law, Kelly, and her newest addition, her granddaughter, Cameron. Therefore, be it resolved that the trustees of the Teachers Retirement Board and the staff of TRS express their deep appreciation and gratitude to Deborah Penny. We will miss her leadership and dedication, and with great respect and affection, extend to Deborah our best wishes for fulfilling and a joyous retirement that she deserves.
So moved.
Like a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Now, Allison Purchase, something she then, or we have to go.
Yes, so the controller was not able to be here this afternoon, and we are required to keep our accommodations to 150 words or less. So it'll be a little shorter. But this is for Deborah, and I'm going to read it off my phone. It's hard for me to read this, but for over 37 years of service to the city of New York, her dedication to public service is exemplified through her role as treasurer of the United Federation of Teachers, for inspiring generations of children as an active New York City teacher, for outstanding contributions to the lives of teacher members and retirees of the city of New York through diligent oversight of the assets of the teachers' retirement system of the city of New York, for the intelligence, wit, and candor she brought to her role as chair, for her devotion to both her work and colleagues that has earned her the respect and admiration of her peers, for her calming nature and kind demeanor, for gaining the trust, appreciation, and gratitude of her colleagues, and for her tremendous contribution to the city of New York. We give you this commendation from Controller Brad.
Oh, my gosh. A little overwhelming.
And a point
All
of
deserved.
personal privilege as well.
Oh, gosh.
Deb, on behalf of all of our members, the retirees, the beneficiaries, the in-service members, we just thank you for all your devotion and compassion, your expertise, your knowledge, your wonderful people skills, your patience with us, your guidance, and most importantly, your friendship. We will miss you, but you'll be here. We want to thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been my best friend for all these years, and wish you the best.
Oh, thank you, everyone. You're all amazing, and I'm really blessed to have worked with you. I will still keep in touch, absolutely. And I'm gonna be here for every Thursday for lunch. Try.
She means it.
Thank you.
May I make some remarks as a ominous floating head?
Guys, the floating head, yes.
So I was certainly hoping to be present for this very important event. And, at the very least, be a person, if not a person holding a large plaque like Allison. I was very impressed by that. But the circumstances prevented that. I got a sick kid in the other room, and there was just nothing to be done. But I do regret it very deeply because I've enjoyed every meeting that I've been to at TRS in which Deborah Penny was the chair, because she was a very effective chair, a very compassionate chair, and just a very pleasant person to deal with. And I always thought when I had a chance to talk with Deborah and share ideas and positions, that she was really willing to entertain thoughts on a very open-minded and very thoughtful basis. And I gather that everyone else is at this table. I'm not at the table, but everyone else is, has had the same experience. And this board will miss you tremendously, Deborah. But wherever you go, they will benefit greatly by your presence. So thank you so much for gracing us at the TRS board for this last time today.
Oh, thank you, Brian. On with the show.
So next on the agenda is the calendar. For the first item on the calendar is the approval of the following minutes. October 6th, 2022, investment meeting minutes, December 1st, 2022, investment meeting minutes, and December 15th, 2022, board meeting minutes.
Thank you, Patricia. Do I hear a motion to approve minutes of the October 6th, December 1st, and December 15th investment and board meeting?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Hirsch. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes are approved.
Next are the items on the calendar, and you all received an electronic version of the calendar and had an opportunity to review it.
Please waive the reading of the calendar.
Do I hear a motion to approve the calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Kazansky. Do I hear a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Hirsch. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, any abstentions? Okay, calendar's approved.
Thank you. Next item is other business. And today we have a CEM Pension Administration benchmarking report presentation that will be given to us by Mike Healy. He's the head of global business development for CEM.
Thank you, Patricia, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Hopefully we get a presentation on the screen shortly.
No plaque for me, Mike.
You have my congratulations. I don't think I can top some of your colleagues, but anyway, great stuff. And yeah, this is the first slide of the presentation. Thank you for getting it up and getting us going. And just a reminder that I am going to be speaking to the 2021 fiscal year data that we collect from you and from other pension administration systems in North America and around the world. And we collect standardized data that allows us to compare your costs, your staffing levels in detail to other pension administration systems, your service levels. And that's what we'll focus on today in terms of the presentation of your results. The service also includes a focus on global best practices through a conference program and research program and networking with other systems. Next slide, please. These are the 69 leading global pension systems that participate in the benchmarking service. They're large number of them are from the US and North America, also from Europe, in several countries. And the idea behind having a global service is that you can get best practice ideas from anywhere in the world that you can choose to borrow from. But in terms of comparing your results, we do that to a custom peer group that's shown on the next page. And these are systems that are close to you in membership size, and for comparing your costs and analyzing them, it's cost per member, and that's active member and annuitants. That's what drives the work that you have to do. And by design, this peer group are US systems that are banded around you in size, and that neutralizes to the extent we can the economies of scale benefit that accrues to having more members. So, CalPERS is not in your peer group because they're a 1 million+ member system and they benefit from those economies of scale. You have a slight, with 216,000 members, you have a slight economies of scale disadvantage relative to the average. We try to keep the peer group consistent or as consistent as we can over time. So it's very similar to what you've seen in prior years, so that we're not changing things too much in terms of the comparisons. So on the next slide, we'll start looking at costs.
I just asked you to make it a full screen.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Is it hard? It's hard to see.
Yeah, there we go.
We might lose something, but there, that's good.
Because she's not.
I think it's the secondary screen. It's like the.
I'll try to speak to the points. I think I can sort of see it. So if people are struggling, I'll do my best to help out. But here we're looking at for the fiscal year 2021, we're looking at your total cost per member of $238 per active member. And you're the dark blue line bar. And the distribution of costs, which go from about your peer group from about $50 to over $400 are shown in the chart. We used a total volume of 51 million of 51.4 million of total pension administration costs for you. And here you can see the breakout in the key categories in the front office, which are those activities that face the members and interact directly with the members, and then the governance and support type activities that support your overall operation and the front office. On the next slide, this is the cost model that we use to compare your costs and to evaluate what drives your costs relative to your peers. And there's 4 factors. And the first one is the number of front office staff you have per 10,000 members. And you do have quite a bit more at 7.6 full-time equivalent staff versus 4.2 for the peer average. And that contributes to $42 of higher cost for you relative to your peer group. The next 2 factors, you come in below your peer group in terms of the amount of third-party costs that you have supporting the front office to deliver service to your members. And you're somewhat surprisingly, as we'll see in a few slides, you have, given that you're in New York City, which is a high cost environment, you have lower costs overall per FTE in your operation. You do have some higher support costs per member, and that contributes $83 of higher cost for you. The next slide looks at one of the key reasons why we would expect you to have higher costs than your peers. Costs and the number of FTE are driven by system complexity, and you have the third highest complexity in our North American universe of systems. And complexity is driven by the multiplicity of rule sets that you have to administer, by having multiple plan types and just differences and choices that are available to members that have to be accommodated by your IT systems and that have to be administered by your staff. So that explains some of it. That is one of the reasons why we would expect you to have higher staff and higher costs in support activities like IT and major projects. Next slide. So I've already spoke to this and we'll keep moving, but it shows you where you are at that 7.6 staff in the range from around 2 to about 12 across your peer groups, and you are above that average. Next slide. You also have a lot more work. You have much higher transaction volumes across many activities, and it's hard to see, but we quantify this on this slide in terms of workload.
Just Liz out there.
Yeah,
She's that display settings.
let's go to the display settings.
First one down.
First
Swap
one down.
presenter view and slideshow. First one. Yep.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you.
Mine do as well. You're like the equivalent of my 13-year-old grandson.
Just trying to help. My nice first sale. It's only 15.
Thank you. And so you can see the difference in the volumes for key activities, calls, and emails. And the next slide, we'll see some of them in a simpler format in a graph that's much easier to see. But the key point I wanted to point out is the weighted total at the bottom. If we go back one more, basically you've got almost 4 times as much work that your system has to accommodate because your members are so engaged and are so active and you have such high transaction volumes. And the next slide really illustrates that in terms of some key transaction volumes. So for
It's as much work as our peers.
you have, yes, it's all relative to your peers that we're talking about. So you have a lot more work when we standardize work by applying the peer median costs to your transaction volumes and their transaction volumes. That's how we calculate the weighted total, which is the workload, if you will. Next slide, if we could. And this just shows, and this is quite a stark chart to me, and a somewhat unusual one. Your members are just very engaged across all channels. You've got high web visits, and you can see you're the dark blue bar in these charts versus the peers and the universe average in the light blue and the all as. And you've got very high web volumes, but you've also got incoming calls and emails that are about twice your peers. They've come down somewhat, which is a good thing. Even physical mail, you're about twice the volume. Members counseled one-on-one, which you have some control on and over in terms of offering it, but you obviously have good take up. So the key thing is that your members are just very engaged, unusually so, relative to peers and what I've seen from other clients. Next slide. Your overall costs per FTE were lower than peers. And this is salaries and benefits and other direct costs for supporting FTE. With one exception, buildings and utilities, where you're about twice the cost, but overall you come in under. And this is quite surprising. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see why. This is using U.S. Bureau of Labor standardized costs for public administration in the counties where your peer groups reside, as well as you. You have the highest cost environment. You're 50% above the peer average, and the expected cost differential for you compared to Cole County, Missouri, at the extreme at the other end is like double. Like you should have double the operating costs to do the same kind of work. That's the message. So it's quite surprising that your costs per FTE are where they are, given this factor. Next slide. You pay more for back office activities. We've already seen the overall number. What I really want to point out here is that your major projects cost is a key contributor to that. And you're at $71 versus $15 for the peer average, and that's a $56 difference. So it's a big factor in driving this. I think complexity contributes to that. The state of your system renewal and maintenance can contribute to it. And if we go to the next slide, I just want to show you how much of an impact it has in percentage terms. Your major project cost, and that's the biggest driver of IT costs for you and everybody else. And for you, it's 25% of your total cost, where it's 5% for the peer median. So it's a big driver of your costs currently. Next slide. So this is the cost trend over since 2014. So I think that's 8 years. Your costs over the period have increased very slightly at 0.6% per annum. That's less than the cost increase of your peers and less than inflation over the period. So that's good. And they did peak in 2015, 2016, and have come down quite a bit since then.
So been your leadership in the community.
Well, that's what I tried to do. It worked.
Next slide, please. Now we're going to change focus and look at total service score. And we collect about 120 different measures of service, covering all the key interactions that you have with your clients that go into this composite score. You're at 71, which is below the peer average of 80. And the message here, I don't want to say that having higher service is necessarily the goal you need to have. I mean, you're running a business, and you have to do what's best for your clients, best for your fiscal environment. And there's no right or wrong answer to that. But there are some it's sort of a tale of two cities in terms of your service story. In many areas, your service is aligned or above the service levels of your peers, but you have one key area that's been challenging, and that's been the contact center area, the call center area, and we'll see that in the next few slides. So you can advance. This shows the weights, basically, and your scores for these sort of aggregated areas that build up to the total service measure. And I'll just point out here, because we're going to go to some specific examples, but if you look at the call center, it's weighted 21% currently. Your score is 45 versus a peer median of 75. So this is the area that overall really has pulled your service level down recently. And we'll look at some of the measures as we advance to the next slide. These are some examples to help bring the service measure scores to life. And member contacts is at the top, and you 2019, 2021 versus the peer average. So undesired outcomes is busy signals, messages, and hangups, a bad thing. So a bigger number is not good. You went from 21% to 17%, so some improvement in 2021. but the peer average is 11%, quite a bit lower. Average total wait time here, a smaller number is obviously better. In 2021, you had 901 seconds, so 15 minutes. That's a long wait time. It was 4 minutes or 240 seconds for the peer average. Almost everybody's call center experience was hurt by COVID. So I know you've had issues, but it's very common that systems took a hit. The big problem is retaining staff and keeping call centers up and running efficiently over the period. Seems like it's starting to rebound, but that's the reality of what happened. You can see that we look at some things about your website, and your website is very well aligned now. You have 14 tools available, for example, versus 15 for your peers. So that are available to your members to self-serve kind of transactions. Your one-on-one counseling and member presentation volumes are high, and that's one of the elements that reflected in the service score. So that's a good thing. Your pension inceptions are very good. 99% of retirees go from the paid payroll to the annuity payroll with no interruption of cash flow month on month, and that's the gold standard. So that's very good versus 87% for peers. And on the next slide, I just tried to highlight some of the areas where you had higher service scores than your peers. So again, it's sort of a tale of two cities for what we just talked about. Yeah, I won't go through them all, but you can see some of them. But it's true in several areas. You have better scores, service scores than your peers. The next slide highlights the challenges in your call center area. So there's basically, if you would get to a perfect score, and I'm not saying that's clearly a goal that you should aspire to or a practical goal, but you basically get to median service with big improvements in your call center. That's the area. Again, that's very beautiful. Next slide. Your service score did increase from 68 to 71 between 2014 and 2021. The improvements were in the number of tools on your website, one-on-one counseling, purchase and transfers in, the turnaround times have improved. And again, the call center, especially recently, has hurt your scores. Next slide, please. And this is just to summarize what we've already been through, and I'll just reiterate. Your cost of $238 per member was above the peer average, and there's several interrelated factors and challenges that you have that are driving that. High system complexity, high major project cost. Your members are very engaged. You've got very high transaction volumes in all channels, and your location is a high-cost business environment. Some of these things are challenges that are difficult to do much about. Certainly at the operating level, some of them are difficult to do very much about. Despite that, your costs have increased over the past 8 years less than your peers. Your service score was 71. It's below the peer median of 80, and there's two storylines. Across many of the areas, your service levels are comparable, in some cases better than your peers. Your call center has really struggled with your service score recently. That's the conclusion of my presentation. Are there questions or discussion points that people would like to cover?
I've got a question. If you can go back to slide 18. You were talking about changes to the website between 2019 and 2021. I know one of the things that TRS was able to accomplish during the COVID, everybody locked up at home period, was their in-person application process went completely digital. That's reflected in this change here?
Yes, it's reflected in the history of your scores, yes.
Okay.
And I would say that not everything about COVID and the pandemic and the reaction and the results are negative. longer term. We've talked about some of the service measures that have really suffered, but some systems have found that replacing one-on-one counseling, physical counseling with virtual counseling forever worked quite well for both them, and some members actually preferred that. It's more convenient for them. So there are some lessons and some changes that are positive despite all the challenges.
From, TRS, when we do the CEM, it doesn't include any of the work that TRS does in tax-deferred annuity. That's not included in this, because this is just for pension process. Yeah, it's just. So it doesn't, although the calls that we get about TDA don't get reported either. So we're not reporting a lot of the work that TDA does, but the scores are just on the defined.
Other programs that you have to administer will add to you indirectly to the complexity.
Yes.
That's the challenge that you have.
And TDA
And
is a complexity that we don't get to see here. Or
loans also, we exclude the loans part also.
and
because-
loans, right, it's the loans program.
And that's to get comparability for functional.
Sure. How are the costs information allocated out then? If you're excluding the TDA, right? Somewhat significant loans, somewhat significant is the costs that are reflected in these presentations that sort of allocated based on like a time study, so to speak, or?
Well, so we have a cost allocation project. Go ahead.
Yes, so we do exclude to our best of the ability.
But why don't you just mention how we get the data
We
and how we're gonna exclude?
right, so we have a whole cost allocation application that we run, and it's has all these multiple areas that we have defined and allocate cost to each activity underneath all those different 13 or 15 areas we have.
Sure.
And then we backtrack and exclude the loans, and we assign FTEs to those activities as well. And then do exclusions using some methods. And then that's how we try to get to a point where, we do the cost allocation. So it is a very intensive, effort-intensive process.
Yeah.
Takes us good 3-4 months to do the overall collection of the data, allocation of the cost, and then submitting to the benchmarking service.
And we do appreciate it. Because it's, comparability is really important. And to get good quality comparisons, you need that effort, and we appreciate it.
I also think something that differentiates us, and I don't say it does or doesn't get reflected in the report, but I think most or all of our peers are state systems. We're a city system, right? So,
Yeah,
so I guess that'll help us sometimes and hurt us other times, but we're just a little different in that. And we have the same amount or comparable members, but some of their members are more further out, ours are close. I don't think that we're being compared to other teachers' retirement systems specifically, so our members are different, level of engagement.
There seems to be a New York effect too.
Yeah. The same in Canada.
Well,
It's in the presentation.
it's based on not just your data either, but
Nicer than everybody else's.
yeah, there's a
Right.
there's a California thing and there is a New York thing. I
Laid
think.
back.
So,
and no bias.
not to stereotype people too much.
so I was going to ask about the peer group, if there were city teachers.
Now,
Because
we do have some, but they're quite small. And you're at the size of many state level systems because New York City is so big. So in an ideal world, we would be able to have a teachers only peer group for you that was similar in size, but we just don't have the participants enough participants to make it work.
Right, so
because I think that the nature of what our members do, means a lot. So our president is always talking about most of our members, 50% of our members leave within the first 5 years. So I think there's a lot of coming into the system, staying in the system, leaving the system, questions about should I leave the system years ago, And I would be a perfect example. I became a teacher and you knew you were staying in it for at least 30 years. Now our members more and more, the biggest question we get is how portable is their pension portable? What happens if I leave? So I can imagine there's a lot of changes going on, a lot of influx in and out. And that certainly, and as you know, trustees, and certainly we run the pension department in our union, we know all the questions and we know, the challenges that TRS has. So I just.
It's reflected in the complexity and.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, the questions going on. So, and again, I want to thank, TRS because they're always supportive and always willing to help our members and do what's best for them. And, I just wish some of those numbers really showed how hard they work for the members, because they really do. And I think just by nature of what we do, what our members do, it makes it more of a challenge. So,
I mean, in this time frame, like we're constantly working on our call center. So, but we're limited to hiring people within the city of New York. We can't say, let's get, people who are working from home throughout the country and bring them. So we have a constant rollover of, we can't ever fill the positions we have. We're limited to only people live in the city of New York, and which is fine, but the point is that, you have a whole country out there that could be answering people's questions, but we're, constantly struggling to hire people and keep them. And there's a constant rollover of people.
Your results are somewhat maybe lower than you might like to see them in some areas, but you also have very big challenges relative to others that we try to quantify and model, but they're real.
Yeah, I mean, so many tiers, and the tiers are so nuanced, and so we have to train the call center. They answer the question the wrong way, and it's impacted a person's life. So yeah, it's definitely complex. Do you find that the other pension systems also have so many tiers?
Well, you're.
So we have
there's
a
a range, but you're the third. I mean, we measure complexity across a lot of different measures, but you're the third highest in our North American universe in terms of.
We used to be second.
Yeah, I know
No, I think you came up with
They took over the complexity.
That's really interesting, is that obviously the engagement drives a lot of the work that teachers does, but then also the above average complexity. And
they might, and I think some of these things are interrelated, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
more complexity drives more calls.
Right, exactly.
Vicious cycle. Could this presentation be circulated after the meeting?
We have the report, we can provide to it.
Oh, I would like, yeah.
Yeah, it's very.
Oh, so you want the presentation on, well, the presentation and report.
Take it all.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Okay, so next on the agenda is questions or comments from the public. Seeing none. Oh. Okay. So,
Okay, do I hear a motion to go into executive session?
So. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kazansky, and that was the second from Mr. Brown.
Yep.
Okay, very good. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we're going to executive session now. Thank you.
In the executive session of the board meeting, there was a discussion of an investment matter and consensus was reached.
It's better first. Do we have anything else for the board meeting? Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kazansky. Any questions? All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We stood.